What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here, and I want to talk to you about X-Files Season 9, the final season of this series. As I mentioned in my review of Season 8, I have not been a huge fan of this series. In fact, basically the first half of the series I really hated, whereas everyone else in the world really loved the first half of the series. And then, once you get to the point where Mulder leaves the show, and then it's Scully and Doggett, most everyone in the world really doesn't like the show anymore. They kind of hate it once Mulder leaves. And I felt like Doggett coming into the show and working with Scully was kind of a shot in the arm, and I felt like it shook up the show just enough to make it interesting for me. Well, at the end of Season 8 and beginning of Season 9, we get another shakeup. We kind of shake things up a little bit more. Scully was basically doing exactly the same amount of stuff in Season 8 as she was in any of the other seasons. Now, she was playing a different role. She was no longer the skeptic. She was the believer, but she was still as involved with all of the cases in Season 8 as she was in any of the cases in any of the other seasons. Starting in Season 9, she is not written out of the show, but she takes a back seat into the show. So the main agents in the X-Files are Doggett and Agent Reyes, who was in Season 8, and she was one of my favorite characters in the season, and I want to say she was just one of my favorite characters in this show. The main agents in the X-Files in this season are Doggett and Reyes, and then Scully is in, like, 5 minutes of each episode, and she's there basically to say, hey guys, what's going on? Do you have anything for me? Any bodies to dissect? Something like that. And then occasionally she'll say something like, well, we had a case similar to this one time. She's sort of like Charlie from Charlie's Angels. She's there as kind of moral support, but she's not really in the field anymore. It's really weird that they wanted to keep Gillian Anderson in the show, but they didn't want her to be as much of a part of the show as she was in Season 8. And I'm curious if she had another baby at some point during this time. I know in real life she has 3 kids, and she had one way back in Season 2. I'm curious if she had another baby around this time, and she wanted to stay in the show, but she wanted to not be in it as much, maybe to raise her kid in real life. I didn't look that up. Probably I should have, but I'm curious if that was going on. Because that's the only thing that I can think of that would make the character be kind of taking a back seat to these other 2 characters. But I still end up really enjoying the dynamic that we've got going on here between Doggett, Reyes, and Scully. You've got Scully, who's basically 100% a believer, as she was in Season 8. Then you've got Doggett, who he's not 100% a skeptic as he was at the beginning of Season 8, because he's seen some stuff, but it's almost like he only believes in certain things. Like, there are these super soldiers who have been hanging out since Season 8, and they're now present in Season 9 as well, and he has seen those guys, and he has seen one of them get destroyed in a trash compactor and then come back to life. So he believes in super soldiers, but it's almost like he says, yeah, super soldiers, I believe in that, but those are, pretty easy to believe in, but I don't believe in aliens or werewolves or vampires or stuff like that. It's almost like any of the weird paranormal stuff that he sees, he believes in that, but once he sees it, it's like, yeah, but that's not that big of a deal. Like in the second to last episode of this series, there's a guy who can telekinetically do stuff. It's very vague what his powers are, and he makes Doggett float, and Doggett is like standing on the ceiling, and Doggett doesn't have like this huge meltdown of my entire worldview has changed because this thing has happened to me. It's basically like, yeah, okay, there's a dude with telekinesis out there. I believe in that. So Doggett is kind of sort of, he's the most skeptical out of the 3, but he's not 100% skeptic like Scully used to be. And then you got Agent Reyes, who is kind of sort of middle of the road. Sometimes she's a believer, sometimes she's a skeptic, depending on what the situation is. And Agent Reyes is by far my favorite character in this show. I really wish they had done like a prequel series of her investigating satanic murders before she hooked up with the X-Files. I think that would be a really fun, really amazing show, and of course they would never ever do that, partly because this series ended 15 years ago, so it would be really hard to pass that actress off as part of a prequel now because she's so much older now. But basically, you've got those 3, and then you've got Mulder. Mulder was rediscovered about halfway into Season 8. He had been missing, and then he shows back up, and then he's kind of just hanging around with nothing to do in this show, and then he gets fired, completely 100% fired from the X-Files, and then at the beginning of this season, we are told that he is now on the run, that his life is a in danger. This makes absolutely no sense at all, because allegedly the same people who are trying to crush the X-Files and prevent the truth from being known, they were the ones who could have killed Mulder this entire time. If they're trying to kill him now, if he has to hide because his life is in danger, why didn't they kill him throughout seasons 1 through 7 of the X-Files? Why didn't they kill him as soon as he came back in the middle of season 8? Why is his life only in danger right now? We are never told that. So he's basically just hiding, basically because the actor is no longer part of the show. And then he shows up at the very end of the series in what is, in my opinion, one of the worst series finales of all time. I probably won't get around to that. Maybe I will. I don't know. But then he shows up towards the end of the series, and it's like, hey, I know some stuff. And basically all Mulder knows, I guess I am just going to get right into the series finale. Basically, Mulder finds out that in the year 2012, there's going to be another alien invasion. And the series ends. I don't really understand what this means, because we got a movie in 2008, and I think it was called I Want to Believe, was what it was called. And I don't know anything about the movie, but I have heard people say that it doesn't really have anything to do with the major arc of the series. So I don't know what this revelation at the end of this series means for this world and our characters. They all just kind of act like, well, aliens are coming and there's nothing we can do. And there's really nothing they can do. This isn't Independence Day, where they can just fly a plane into a giant alien ship and destroy it, and then happy fun time, everybody, we've defeated the bad guys. This isn't that kind of world. So it's a downer ending that also doesn't ever go anywhere. I don't know if they just kind of off-screen dealt with the alien invasion, because we're going to be getting a revival series pretty soon, and as of this video going up, it's already started, but I kind of don't think that they're going to deal with the alien invasion that was supposed to happen in 2012 in this series in 2016. So that's something that it feels like they just wanted to kind of drop another bomb on the audiences, but then they didn't want to follow it up, or maybe they weren't capable of following it up. Maybe Chris Carter wanted to do a movie in 2012, and he wasn't able to get the funds, or he wasn't able to get Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny together to do it. I don't know, but that never does get followed up so far. Now, maybe it will get followed up in the 2016 revival. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. But then, basically, this season, I feel like I really enjoyed it, about like Season 8. I felt like it was as good as Season 8. I really enjoyed Doggett. I really enjoy Reyes. I liked them. I thought they were good additions to this show. But I felt like this season, it almost seems like it ends too soon. Like, we have just a few subplots that were kind of lingering, and then it's like, oh, we gotta wrap these subplots up real quick because our show is ending. Like, John Doggett's son was killed before the series began. I think before the series began. Definitely before we ever see John Doggett. And then there's one episode, like, 2 episodes before the series ends, where it's like, okay, let's reveal who killed John Doggett's son real quick. And it feels very rushed, and it also feels very rushed for Cary Elwes's character. Cary Elwes was one of the assistant directors of the FBI, and I was interested in that character. He was a heel for Monica and Doggett, but he was not a bad guy, until that episode where we find out who killed Doggett's son. And it's not Cary Elwes's character, but we find out that Cary Elwes's character, Brad Fulmer is his name. We find out that he is on the take. He is corrupt. And I didn't like that episode because, A, it felt way too rushed. We had only had, like, 2 other episodes in 2 seasons that dealt with Doggett's son. We really didn't have enough of a build-up to this reveal of who killed Doggett's son. So it just kind of felt way too rushed on that end. And also, it really kind of rushes Fulmer's character, because we find out he's on the take, and then the next thing we know, he shoots the guy who's responsible for Doggett's son being dead. But I don't know why Fulmer shot the guy. Doggett was about to shoot him, and then he goes out into the alley, and Fulmer shot him. And that's it. That's all that we see of Fulmer. We don't know what happened to Fulmer. Did he get disbarred from the FBI for shooting an unarmed man? Did he get commended for shooting a guy who killed a little kid like 10, 15 years earlier? We don't know. And I felt like that whole episode was just really badly handled, because I was interested in the character of that Cary Elwes was playing. I was really interested in him, and I just felt like that character didn't get enough to do. If we had had a season 10 where we could have had a little bit more development for Fulmer, then we might have had more of a rounded out, more of a fleshed out character. I don't know. It would kind of be like if X-Files ended at season 2 and Skinner barely got to do anything in the series, and you'd be like, wow, I really like that guy that Mitch Pileggi is playing, but he never got to do anything because the series ended so soon. That's kind of like what we've got going on here, where Fulmer was introduced in season 8, I think it was season 8, and then he doesn't ever get to do anything because he's only in like 5 or 6 episodes, and he's heavily featured in like maybe 2 of them. And anything that's hinted about him, any information that's given to us, we never get to see it followed up on. So I felt like that was kind of badly handled. And I feel like we get that with a lot of stuff. Like, we get close to the end of this series, Doggett and Agent Reyes start holding hands. It's like, finally, some couple, they start acting proactive, and they start, getting with each other. Because whenever this series first introduced Agent Reyes, and they were Doggett and Reyes were sort of giving each other "I want you" eyes, I was like, no, I'm not going to hold my breath. I waited 7 years for Mulder and Scully to get together, and it never happened. Then we find out in this season that Mulder and Scully actually did sleep together. If you'll recall, in season 7, there was an episode that hinted that they might have slept together, but I still wasn't sure if they had. Apparently, they did sleep together, and Scully's baby is actually Mulder's baby. So anyway, this season gives us Agent Reyes and Agent Doggett. And they sort of get together at the end, but it's not really much in the forefront. And I feel like maybe Chris Carter just wasn't interested in character relationships. I feel like he was much more interested in, let's throw a vampire into this episode, and let's have the characters fight a vampire. But he was not interested in developing a slow-burning relationship between Doggett and Reyes, or Scully and Mulder. And I feel like if this show was happening now, we would be getting that. We would get a very slow, it starts off as platonic respect, and then Doggett starts to have feelings for Reyes, and Reyes starts to have feelings for Doggett, and then finally they kiss, and then they get together, and then it's a happy ending all around. I feel like we get more romantic stuff between Doggett and Reyes than we did with Scully and Mulder, which is weird because these two characters are only in 2 seasons of this show, whereas Scully and Mulder were in 9, but I don't get as much of the romantic build-up as I would have liked. We get one episode where Reyes is talking to Doggett, and she says he's a dog person, and she's explaining what that means, and she's kind of looking at him like, I want you to kiss me. And then later, she's in a coma, and Doggett is thinking about that, and he's thinking, I wish I had kissed her. And he actually, when he's thinking about it, he's thinking of himself kissing her. And then, we don't get anything else with their relationship until, 1 or 2 episodes before the series ends, and they're holding hands. And that's it. I like these two. I wish that they had gotten together. I wish we could have gotten more with these two. I almost wish that we could have just had a series about Doggett and Reyes and not Scully and Mulder. That may sound really harsh, but I like these two so much more than I like Mulder. And I like Scully more once she became a believer, but it was almost too little too late by the time she did become a believer. But I really like these two, and I really wish we could have gotten more of them forming a relationship, kind of becoming a couple, if you will. And that may sound weird. A lot of people probably don't care about that kind of thing, but if you're going to try to convince me that the story is not what's important here and the characters are what's important, then you're going to have to give me characters to care about. And this show did in the form of Doggett and Reyes. It just didn't give me enough of those two kind of becoming a couple and growing as characters together. That's what I wanted to see, and I just didn't get enough of that with these two. But it was a lot more than we got with Scully and Mulder, who just out of nowhere, suddenly it's like, okay, we're kissing now, and there's really no build up to it at all. I did want to talk a little bit about Scully's baby. Scully had a baby in season 8, and ever since the baby was born, everyone in the world is like, this baby is really important. Some people are trying to protect the baby for some reason. Some people are trying to kill the baby for some reason. We are not really told why the baby is so important. We just know it's somehow going to be instrumental in this big conspiracy, but we don't know what kind of conspiracy it's going to be instrumental in, because it seems like there are 2 kinds of conspiracies in this show. There's a conspiracy with the super soldiers who can't be killed by anything other than this special alien metal, and then there's the conspiracy about the aliens coming. And there's the whole thing about the alien invasion coming in 2012. That's one conspiracy, and I feel like that's a separate conspiracy from the super soldier thing. Or maybe it's not. I don't really know. This show just kind of likes to tease stuff, but it doesn't actually like to give actual answers. And so Scully's baby is important for reasons. I don't really know why. Jeffrey Spender comes back from the dead. We thought he was dead way back in season 5 or 6. He's back and he's scarred, kind of looks like the Elephant Man, and then he cures Scully's baby. He says, okay, it no longer has superpowers, but all the people who have been talking about how important your baby is, they're still going to keep talking about how important the baby is, and they're still going to try and kill and or kidnap your baby. So Scully has to give the baby up for adoption, and it's a really sad episode. There's a 1-2 punch in this season where, 1, we get Scully's baby given up for adoption, and that was really sad. And then in the next episode, spoilers, the lone gunman die, and that was also really sad. And of course, I knew about that in advance because I had watched this featurette that was on the season of the Lone Gunman DVD. I saw it on YouTube, and I was watching it because I had finished watching the Lone Gunman series, and then they revealed that the Lone Gunman died in season 9 of the X-Files, and I was really disappointed in that. I wish I could have been more surprised by that here. But yeah, this season gives us some really sad episodes, like the one where Doggett is investigating his son dying. That one's kind of sad and also not really a good episode. And then we get Scully's baby given up for adoption. We get the Lone Gunman dying. There's a lot of tears going on here, guys. But overall, I like this season. I don't think I liked it as much as Season 8. Season 8 felt really dense. It felt like it had a lot going on, and in a good way. Season 9 feels really dense, but it feels like it's like, oh, we have to wrap things up. We don't have a Season 10 to continue all this. And it's not able to wrap everything up. Everything is not wrapped up. There's still a lot of loose plot threads at the end of this season, and I don't feel like any of those will ever get addressed, especially since Agent Doggett and Agent Reyes are not going to be in the revival series. Actually, Reyes might be in an episode, but Doggett's not going to be. So I feel like this season was dense, but not as dense as Season 8, and also was almost too rushed in trying to wrap stuff up. So I didn't like this season as much as Season 8, but overall, I like the last 2 seasons of this show. It kind of reminds me of Scrubs Season 8, where that was basically just a brand new series, and a lot of people really hated it. I didn't hate Scrubs Season 8. It wasn't as good as the earlier seasons, but I didn't hate it. Here, I actually like Scrubs, I actually like X-Files Seasons 8 and 9 a lot more than everyone else in the world. It's not perfect. I think that this season could have benefited from tying up some of these plot threads earlier instead of waiting till the very end to try and tie everything up over the course of 9 years. But overall, I really liked this, what I would call X-Files 2.0, which is seasons 8 and 9. I like it a lot better than X-Files seasons 1 through 7. But then again, I am weird like that. Everyone else in the world loves the X-Files, and I'm not really an X-Files fan. So those are my thoughts on this season. What did you guys think of season 9? Let me know in the comments below. And the next X-Files thing I will be reviewing will be the I Want to Believe movie. I'll watch that some point in the future, and then after that, I'll probably review the 6-episode Revival series. After it's all completely done, I'll probably do one video talking about the Revival series. So look forward to those videos in the future, and I do other videos, so be sure to look out for those also. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.